first thing that we're going to talk about in this class are verbs. And specifically what we're going to talk about with those verbs in Latin are what are called first and second conjugation verbs in the present tense. Now, before we even start talking about any of this other stuff, we should probably touch on the idea of what is a conjugation. Okay? And so what we have here is just one of our verbs from this chapter, amo, amare, amavi, amatum. Okay? And if you notice, there are 4 different parts, and we have 1, 2, 3, and 4. And we can talk a little bit more about what each part does and what each part is used for here, but the important one is your second part. That second part is what's called your infinitive. And the infinitive, oh, I misspelled that. Infinitive. And that simply means that it is not defined. Infinite, not finite, not defined. And that just means that it doesn't have a subject. Okay. This is typically, using this fancy pen, the to form, to verb in English. Okay, so to run, to jump, to skip, right? That is your infinitive form. And the second part is always what tells us what conjugation we're in. And so if we look at these, and what is a conjugation? Essentially, all the conjugation is a verb group. Okay, and that verb group is just a grouping of verbs. Okay, and each one of them has certain characteristics and certain rules that apply to those verbs, and they all follow that. It's an easy way to organize them and a convenient way to learn them, because each one, once you know that they're in a group, they all do the same thing. And the conjugations, there are 4 of them. They're just called first, second, third, and fourth conjugation. Okay, and the first conjugation has an infinitive ending that ends ARE, and we saw this in the vocab. And second conjugation is a long ERE. Third is a short ERE, and fourth is IRE, and we will get those later on. Right now we're just going to worry about first and second conjugation, but this is your infinitive endings. And that will tell you what conjugation your verb is in. The second part of your verb will tell you what conjugation, and then from there what you need to, the rules that you would need to follow, right, once you memorize those rules. And so right now we're just going to worry about first and second, and they both have conveniently sort of the same rules that they follow. Okay, and you'll see that as we go through these notes. Okay, so just starting out first, what is a verb? Well, a verb is simply just an action word. Okay, it's telling you what is going on in the sentence. And because of that, because it's giving you the action, it's telling you what's going on, it's one of the most important elements of a sentence. And it's so important that even the word verb comes from the Latin word verbum, which means word. Right? It's just the primal word. It's the original word, essentially. That's how important it is its name is even just the basic word for word. And so an action word. Just so you can see here, and feel free to pause the video if you want to fill this out, verbs are just one part of speech in Latin, and those parts of speech are the same in English. And I have the other parts of speech listed out here. Nouns, pronouns, adjectives, adverbs, prepositions, conjunctions, and interjections. And we'll be talking about each one of these throughout the year. But for right now, just so you're aware, those are the other parts of speech. But we're really going to keep talking about verbs. Okay. Moving on. Okay. Grammatically, verbs have 5 different characteristics. They have person, number, tense, mood, and voice. And just for the sake of space, I'm going to jump over to these other notes. Okay, and let's talk about person, number, tense, mood, and voice, and what each one means. So person is simply answering the question of who is speaking. Okay, and you have the options of first, second, or third person. Okay, it's always in relation to the speaker. So first person would be like I, or we. Second is always you or you plural. And third would be someone like he, she, or they. Okay. First person is the speaker is doing the speaking and they're referring to themselves. Second is the speaker is referring to someone directly in the conversation. And third is the speaker is referring to someone outside of the conversation. That's person. Number is just how many. And you have two options here, right? And it could be either singular or plural. And those are really your options there. I is singular, but we is plural. He, she, or it is singular, but they is plural. Tense is answering the question of when is this action happening. We have past, and there are a bunch of past tenses in Latin that we will learn. There's present tense, which we're going to learn right now, and future tense. Okay, so right now we're just focusing on future. There are different moods and then voice. And mood is how is this being stated, right? How is the verb being expressed? You have three options. There's either indicative mood, imperative mood, or subjunctive mood. And we will get both indicative mood and imperative mood here. Subjunctive mood we won't even talk about this year. And then the last thing is voice, and this is sort of just there's either active or passive voice. And right now we're going to deal almost exclusively with active voice. That means that the subject of the sentence is also doing the action. So like the boy runs down the street. The boy is doing the running. Passive voice would be if the subject is being acted upon. It's not actually doing the action of the sentence. So this would be something like the ball was thrown by me. That's going to be passive voice. Okay. So going back to our notes here, so those are our characteristics. Okay. We're going to talk about conjugating and what conjugating a verb is in the indicative mood. So conjugating, which comes from the Latin word conjugare, which means simply to join together, is when you list out all of a verb's forms for a given person, number, tense, mood, and voice. Well, for right now, we're just dealing with present tense. We have indicative mood and active voice. So we don't really need to worry about these three. We're really just going to be changing the person and number for a verb. And if you look at these charts, we have first, second, and third person, and we have singular and plural. So this is the standard chart and what we're going to use each time to change verbs. Now if we look in English with a verb conjugation in the present tense, if we take the verb to love, like we did before, and we want to say to love, which is our infinitive, and we want to give it definition, we want to make it a finite verb, right? Well, if we look here, this is actually what it would look like. And if you notice, the verb itself doesn't really change except in one spot. What we need in English, because all these verbs look identical, are the pronouns that we probably are familiar with, maybe not knowing that they're called pronouns, to actually distinguish what our subject is. So we need that I, or we need that you, or we need that he, she, or it, right? We need we, you, and they. And we need those in English. We rely on those in order to get our meaning. Okay, and without these, we can't actually understand what's going on in the sentence because our subject is not really defined. Okay, and Latin is a little bit different. Okay, Latin instead relies on word endings, and this is going to be true for pretty much everything that we do in this class. Relies on word endings. And these endings, because they are unique to each person and number, are called sometimes personal endings. And those personal endings for Latin, here they are. There's O or M, S, T, mus, tis, and nt. Okay? And the way that I learn them is just to run through them. So OMST mus tis enti, OMST mus tis enti, OMST mus tis enti. The other way is there's this little acronym, or really phrase, not really an acronym, but you have MOST, so we have most, then we have MUST, must, and isn't. And this was a way that my student teacher, or my cooperating teacher taught it when I was student teaching, is you have most, must, isn't, and that actually gives you all of the endings there. You still have the M and O for the OM, you have the S, T, MUS, TIS, and NT in there. So most, must, isn't, or just go through them, OMST, must, tis, NT. Either way is fine. But that's only half of it. Okay, it relies on word endings, but we still need to add those endings to something, or else they're not endings. And what we add them to in Latin is we add them to our stem. Okay, and to get this stem, all you do is you take your infinitive, again, that second part of your verb, okay, and you get rid of the RE. Okay, so if we look here, we have amo, amara, and amawi, amatum. Okay, so we take off that RE, and we're left with ama. Okay? And then we add those endings. Okay, so we keep ama here. And the only thing that's a little bit different is this first part here. What this first part is actually your first person singular in the present tense. For every verb that we get, the first part of your verb is that first person singular. And the reason it's given to you is because it doesn't always follow the pattern. If you notice here, we don't have an A at the end. We just have O. It's not AMAO, it's just AMO. So when you're dealing with the present tense, you just have to take that first part and drop it down. That's why it's important to memorize. Okay? For all of the other ones, all you do is you say, you take this stem and you add your endings. OST, mus, tis, and NT. And sometimes, depending on what tense it is or anything else like that, this could be an O or an M. It just depends. For present tense, we mostly always use O. So OST, mus, tis, NT. And this is helpful because it's given to you. Okay. So if we wanted to say, as an example here, if I wanted to say, he loves the girl. Why not? Right? Well, we would just take girl, and then we would say he loves. Well, he is third person and singular, so we just add our T. Now, if we wanted to say we, that should have had an S there, but we love the girl, right? Instead of that T ending, which is used for third plural, third singular, instead what we do is we take we, which is first person plural, and we add mus. Okay? And that's the only thing that changes. Latin does not change its stem, it's just based on the ending, and you need to look at that ending in order to tell what your subject is. Okay? We don't even need to express the subject, we just have the word for girl, and we have love. If you wanted to be real pessimistic, then say we love nothing, just get rid of that and add it nihil. We love nothing. Okay?